just about, number one, knowing what it is. I mean, I think so many people throw around the word help, but what actually does that mean? And so I think for me, number one was just sitting down with myself and figuring out what that means. When you talk therapy and all these things, therapy only goes as far as you take it. When you sit in a therapy session, therapists probably talk 10-15% of the time, and you talk the other 85 or 90. So then what are you talking about? And I think for me, and knowing that and understanding that and then going into the process, it's first important to identify what exactly that is. And I think so many people can have their thoughts on what that means. But again, if it's not something that you're up to, if it's not something that you believe, then you're wasting your time. I think one of the best things that happened to me during the process, as soon as I got on the phone, for our first initial, he's like, so what's this about? I see all the things in the news. I see all, everything's everyone's saying. How do you feel and what are you thinking? Because again, if you're here just to satisfy some obligation or satisfy some public opinion, you're wasting my time and yours. And that was the most important thing for me that I could hear, because that wasn't why I was there, and yet, one would think so. And so I think, that was a very important part of me starting what has been the last 4 weeks or so for me. I took some time away from everything. Like, I don't think I touched the ball for the first 10 days because it was the least important thing to me. I needed a break just from everything. And one of the best things in the world for me was not waking up the next day like, all right, I gotta go get this workout in, I gotta go get a lift in, I gotta go do this. It was wonderful waking up like, nope, I have an 8-month-old, I have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old. It was wonderful waking up to them and being home when they wake up and indulging in that process. And so I didn't touch a basketball for the first 10 days. And then, I started working again. Then it felt good to get back in the gym. After I've sat with some of my thoughts, and I think in going back after 10 days, it was refreshing to go get a workout in. But it didn't feel like a routine. It didn't feel like I was jumping right back into the revolving door, if you will, and just start back spinning. I was like, nope, I'm gonna go here today and I'm gonna get some shots up. I'm gonna go here today and I just really wanna get my body moving and get a sweat. It wasn't some routine or with some goal of getting back to the court. It was simply just, this is what I feel like I should go do today. Or this is what I wanna go do today. And like I said, that was therapeutic in itself. You never realize how stressful this job is until you no longer have that stress. And then it's like, whoa. And I think for me, I was going through my weeks, and I was on one of my calls with the league, with the PA and Rich, and
all that being said, you are returning to a 17-19 team that pretty clearly needs you. How close do you feel, and how urgent does this situation feel from just a professional?
It's urgent from a professional standpoint because I wasn't hurt. At least my body wasn't hurt. My mind was hurt. My feelings was hurt. But it wasn't like some injury cost me off the floor. So it's very urgent because I've cost my team enough. You know, I've cost this organization enough. You know, and so it's not a time for me to just come back and be like, all right, I'm going to take my time and get back when I can. No, like, you caused this yourself. And so you don't get the grace. And although I'm very appreciative of our organization, you know, number one, for the support, but number two, like, they're putting the plan together to ramp up. If it was up to me, I would love to come back and play right now. Reality is it's probably not the best thing for me or the best thing from an organizational standpoint, and what that looks like moving forward, and the risk of injury and all those things. But, you know, there's a human component of this as well. And, you know, you sit home and you watch these games, and as a competitor, you want to help. And so, and then returning, it's funny. Coach said, welcome back, and film yesterday, and BP started clapping, and everybody started clapping. I'm like, well, I'm not sure I deserve a round of applause. Like, but I'll take it. But, you know, it's like in that, like, half joking, but like, you don't just get grace and I'll take my time and get back when I can. Like, I'm coming back from a suspension, not an injury. And so there's a huge sense of urgency, and I pushed it like crazy today, and I'm gonna push it like crazy every day until I can get back on the floor. Because number one, I think it's also important for these guys to know and understand that, you know, I'm not approaching this like I'm gonna just take my time and get back when I can. I'm gonna do all that I can to meet the requirements that I have to meet with our performance group in order to get back on the court, and I'm trying to do that as fast as I can. Whatever work that requires, that's what I'll do. I think number one is about, first off, understanding your emotions, understanding those moments. My goal is not to come back and worry about crossing the line, because I still have to come back and play the game the way I know how to play the game and be the best me that I can be for my team to help give my team a chance to win. I think, you know, as far as not crossing the line with a referee, yes, that's a big point of emphasis for me. And knowing and understanding where that line is. But I didn't make it to this point worried about touching the line, you know. I didn't help this team and this organization become what we've become by worried about crossing the line. And so, you know, throughout my time away, you kind of go through work through all these thoughts, right? And, you know, if you would have talked to me 2.5 weeks ago, I'm like, I'm not crossing the line, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And you know, but as you continue to do work and put the work in, and as time go by, for me, it's about developing a practice, you know, developing a routine. And I think one of the best things about that is it hasn't been just on me to develop that. You know, I've had support from this organization, support from the league in developing what those things look like. And that's what I plan to do. They know me. You know, they know me, the person, not just the basketball player. And their support is not something that I take for granted, you know, and I think I've had my shortcomings and my failures and where I've fallen extremely short of upholding my end of the bargain. But I am also a firm believer in reciprocity. And I think to Steph, to them, you know, whoever's coach, front office, this organization, I give my all to. You know, as a person, as a basketball player, in these personal relationships, I think I reciprocate that. Now, I've had issues that I can admit haven't been the best, and they've had to stick with me through. And I'm very appreciative of that. I don't take that for granted one bit. But I can only show that appreciation through my play and through as I continue to move forward and show the growth that I've experienced over the last few weeks, which is just the beginning. Like I said, I'm not going to come up here and be like, oh man, it's been 3.5 weeks, or like, here we go. Like, it's not real. But I think what I know over these 3.5 weeks, I have grown some and started a path to further grow and dedicated myself to that path. And so ultimately, you just want the opportunity to show them that. And I think that's the best way I can sit here and say thank you 1,000,000,000 times till I'm blue in the face. Or in which, I do thank them. But ultimately, what shows that appreciation is my growth moving forward. And that's what I plan on doing. No, not yet, but I'm pushing to make that as soon as possible. As soon as I get to go, I know our performance staff have put a plan together. As soon as I get to go, I'll be ready to go. But like that goal is also Coach Kerr. Like, like I said before, you don't just get to walk back in like when you want to walk in. Like that goal is also Steph. Like that goal is the guys in the locker room. Like, I don't like the league was one thing, but like it's so much bigger than that. Like I owe a lot to these guys, and so the goal is also on them. It's not just up to me. I don't necessarily view it that way. When I get to go from our staff, our performance staff, our coaching staff, our guys, like that's all a part of it. It's not just on me. And where's your conditioning level? Like, I think I'm in pretty good condition, but it's so much more than that. Like reintegrating yourself into the team. I didn't see these guys for the whole time, and that was very intentional. But like that's all a part of it.
And lastly,
it's not necessarily a time thing, but when it is indefinite, you don't know what that means either. And so that could be like who knows what. It's indefinite, and so. But like I said before, I think having the time allows you to process those thoughts. And I'm also appreciative to the league for the indefinite suspension. You know why? Because it was no goal to return. It was no, all right, I'm going to work and get through these 5 games, so as soon as the 5 games is up, I'm back. Like, a part of the indefinite and returning was being in a better space. And so to allow my mind to process what it looks like in getting in a better space, I think you're able to then sit with those thoughts. But to sit for 5 games, I'm targeting the return date. There was no target until 2 days before it was announced to you all that the ban would be lifted. There was no target the entire time. And I think when there is no target like that, it allowed me to process all these things. It allowed me to not have the stress and the plan of working towards a return. It allowed me to come to some realizations that I needed and wanted to come to. And so I think that's more so that for me than anything. And what you miss the most is just being able to be there for the guys. Like, man, it's hard to win NBA games. I think we've had times where we've made it look easy. It's hard, like it's hell, to win an NBA game. So when you see guys struggling, you just want to help. But in the same breath, I wasn't sitting there like, I need to get back. I can change this. That was the whole point of not being here. I didn't think guys needed to hear my voice. But yet, if I see something, I'm going to try to help. And I just thought that was wrong. Like, especially with no return date, just to be around the guys and like working out and like open-endedly practicing and work. Like, I just didn't think that was right. I didn't think it was right for them to even have the uncertainty. You know, it's almost like you out of sight, you out of mind. And it don't quite always happen that way in our sport because it's a win or lose sport. And so when the wins are piling up, everybody's great. When you're losing, everything feels like it's falling apart because that's what it's all based off of. And so I just didn't think that they should be susceptible to more than I had already kind of made them have to face. And seeing me every day was one of those things. And so I would just say being with the guys, like the camaraderie. Yeah, I mean, they've been put in a position to have to deal with some things as well. And so if you put someone in a position to have to deal with things, and it's not just my kids, but as far as my kids go, if you let them see you F up, then you got to let them see you make it right. You got to let them see your growth. You got to let them see you take ownership. Can't just run and hide.
You've played with Steph your whole career, one of the greatest players the NBA has ever seen. How concerned are you that you may have cost him some of, these moments of his prime?
I don't necessarily look at it as costing him some moments of his prime, because we're all in this together, right? Like, one of us fell, we're all failing. It's a team sport. I think for me personally, I care more about the person. Like, how am I affecting the person? I can care less about a prime if I'm honest, because I don't see his prime coming to an end no time soon. But like, how are you affecting the person that care about you? I spoke about the Stephen A. incident on my podcast. Like, then that's something he got to live with, forcing him to carry more weight than he necessarily would have to carry. What effect does that have on him? Even more so from a basketball standpoint. Like, it matters more to me how I affect the person.
There has to be a sense that there can't be an explanation that follows the apology, and it's not an apology. So what I'm looking for, what the team is looking for, what I think Draymond knows is expected is no more buts. Just, an apology needs to be an apology, and then you move on, but then you have to learn from that apology. That's just kind of basic, standard, behavior, and that's what we need. We need him at his best. We need, what makes Draymond great is his bravado, his emotion. What makes Steph great is his confidence mixed with his humility. And it's interesting to watch how powerful humility can be. And I saw it with Tim Duncan all the time. And I think everybody's different, so I don't expect Draymond to all of a sudden behave like Steph Curry or Tim Duncan. I want him to behave like himself. But there needs to be some humility in the wake of everything that's happened that goes along with that bravado. We still need the bravado. We still need the emotion. But we need the humility that comes when you know you're wrong, when you've made serious mistakes, when you've put your team at peril, when you've potentially harmed other people, opponents, teammates. That balance is the key to all of this. And Draymond knows that. He and I have had that discussion. He's been away for a while. He's had a lot of time to reflect. I think that's what we're all looking for. Steph is such a unique player that the combinations around Steph really make a big difference. And we've been trying a lot of different things this year. I've said the last week we'd like to try that more, and it really didn't go well, clearly, the other night. So it's tough when you're where we are in 11th place in the West, I think. It's tough to continue to experiment with things that really aren't, proving to be very successful. So still could happen, but I'm, be perfectly honest, I'm less inclined to do it now.
Obviously, bigger issues at stake, but there is a countdown towards February 8th, less than a month. Whenever he's back, presumably, it's not too long from now. Do you feel like there's going to be enough time to assess what this team is like with him out there, what this team needs, what this team might have to do? Is that enough time to assess everything?
Yeah. We've had plenty of time to assess the team this year and the last couple of years. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
Steve, we've seen a couple of rough nights from Steph, and he's had a few more of those than he's probably used to. What do you think it is? Do you think it's fatigue? How the defense is guarding him, or what do you think is going on?
I think it's a combination of the above. I think there's a little fatigue. It's a long season. Usually, every year he has a couple, spells where, he's not on his game, and that's just natural for any player. But I think we've thrown a ton on his shoulders. The burden that Steph Curry has on him for this franchise is unfair. The Draymond suspension. Draymond is the vocal leader of the team, obviously, right? He and Steph have kind of been, co-captaining the leadership with our group for a decade. So without Draymond here, that adds a lot more to Steph's plate. We're trying to integrate, a lot of young players. Steph has a very unique style. It's the play after the play that matters with Steph. And we've put him in some combinations where the play after the play isn't happening, and that's frustrating for him. He's not James Harden or Luka. We're not going to just run a high pick and roll and spread the floor, and he's going to dribble 700 times. That's not his game. So he has to thrive off the ball just as well as he does on the ball. And frankly, we've had some combinations out there that don't recognize that as well as certain combinations. So when you mix in that and some of the other guys struggling, whatever, and occasional turmoil, that's a lot. That's a lot. And this guy has carried our torch for over a decade, and everything we've built is really based on him. And so we're putting too much on his plate right now.